Hi there, my name is Katie Feldhues and I am the Ross County 4-H educator, and we're here today to talk a little bit about initiative and self-direction for a camp counselor training that's virtual because we can't meet in person. So supplies that you need are going to be paper, a writing tool, and of course your brain. And supplies you don't need, just as true at every one of our camp counselor trainings, you don't need your cell phone. So if you need to pause the video to go gather those supplies, I encourage you to do so at this time. And we'll wait just a few seconds for you to do that. Okay, hopefully you've gotten your supplies together. The first thing we want to talk about is what is self-direction, because I think that that's a fancy name for something that's really simple. You need to be able to make your own decisions and organize your own work rather than being told what to do by managers, teachers, or in this case, your camp director. There's a lot of camp counselors that go to camp, and there's even more kids, which is awesome, but we can't be constantly monitoring your every move. So it's really important that you know where you need to be, when you need to be there, and how you can be a helper. Another term that we commonly use for self-direction is initiative. And initiative is the ability to use your judgment to make decisions and do things without needing to be told what to do. So at camp, we have a schedule that's set, and we know that we have to be flexible in how we manage that schedule. But it's common that you guys as camp counselors know what's coming next. And if you're thinking ahead, you can problem solve, what can I do to help make this go smoother and faster and perhaps more efficient than if I didn't take action? And some of those circumstances are predictable, like if you are about to set up for a program or a meal or something like that. And some of those things come up on the fly. For example, if maybe your co-counselor is supposed to help set tables for the day, but your co-counselor is taking a sick camper to the nurse, somebody still has to set that table. And so looking for those opportunities where you can maybe step up as a leader and show initiative and self-direction is what we're going to be working on today. So first thing to think about is small things can make a really big difference. And an example of that would be in punctuation. I love this joke. We get it all the time. Let's eat grandma, as opposed to let's eat grandma. So are you telling someone that we should probably go eat grandma, or are you saying, grandma, come on, let's go eat? And so a small thing like a comma can make a big difference. And the same is true for the domino effect that one of your positive actions can make a big difference on our camp community. So the next thing we want to do is to go to a video. So we're going to watch a Kid President video. Hopefully you guys have seen this young man before. He works with an organization called Soul Pancake that he and his uncle started, and he does a ton of inspirational videos. But this one is on how to change the world.
There are lots of ideas how you can change the world. Some people think you should just complain about it. I won't change the world.
Okay, so hopefully you had an opportunity there to be challenged that little things make a big difference. And especially at camp when there's so much going on all the time, to think about how you and your actions can change our camp world. And that's something that's a part of our 4-H pledge. If you think about it, we always say for my club, my community, and my world. And so how do you become a difference maker or a helper? So let's talk specifically about what happens at camp. So this is a picture of the Tar Hollow dining hall at the end of a meal. As you know, every camp does it a little bit differently, but in our camp setting, we serve family style. So big bowls of food come out to the tables, counselors help serve the campers, make sure they get their stuff. And then at the end, it all gets condensed down and sent back in a certain order to our kitchen. And so everybody does it a little bit different there. This is towards the end of the meal. So the question is, if you were in your dining hall, what needs to be happening now during this moment where we are towards the end of the meal and haven't started cleaning up yet? What needs to be happening in 10 minutes? And what needs to be happening in 30 minutes? How can you be a helper? So I'm going to start a timer for 1 minute, and you guys can brainstorm what needs to be happening now, what needs to be happening in 10 minutes, and what needs to be happening in 30 minutes. How can you be a helper? So I will hang out here. Okay, so for us, if you are at the end of a meal in the dining hall, you can go ahead and start collapsing your plates. You can scrape all of your non-eaten food into one container. You can not stack cups because we don't do that, but you can flip those over on your tray. You can condense any liquid that hasn't been consumed into one of our buckets. You can start collapsing all the stuff to one section of the table so you could start wiping down tables. Any of those things could be going on. At the same time, we end every one of our meals with song singers, and we don't pre-select those. So at our camp, we would be looking for counselors to step up and say, hey, I want to sing Herman the Worm, or I want to lead Grand Old Duke of York, or can we finally do Sally the Camel? So any of those that would be coming up and figuring out what song they're going to pull from our song list and figuring out who's going to help them lead would be appropriate things to do. Um, Other things that could be going on is if you're in charge of running the next activity that's happening after lunch, you could be thinking about what programming supplies you need to be pulling together to help get those and make sure that they're staged correctly. But you'd also want to make sure that someone's at your table and monitoring your kids. So figuring out who's going to stay and who's going to go do that would be an important conversation to have so that the kids obviously have a counselor with them at all times. Other things that you could be doing towards the end of the meal is, has everybody eaten something on their plate? Has everyone drank something? If there's any lunch meds that need to be given out, have those campers gone and gotten those? Making sure you're checking in with campers that they aren't getting dehydrated, that they have put on sunscreen, that they are doing okay. All of those things are much better options than some other things you could be doing. Like these boys are hanging out with some of their co-counselors at the end of the table while another counselor is actually sitting and chatting with her campers and eating their ice creams. So you can see in this picture, counselors making both choices and how that is or is not impacting our camp setting. So the next scenario we're going to do is going to be a group of campers headed back from polar bear swim in the morning. So same questions. What needs to be happening now? What needs to be happening in 10 minutes? What needs to be happening in 30 minutes? And how can you be a helper? So we're going to go ahead and start our 1 minute timer. Polar bear swim usually happens for us at about 7 o'clock in the morning at camp. It's about a half an hour long. We have anywhere between 20 and 40 kids that show up. That can be as much as a third of our camp goes to that. About 5 seconds left. All right. So what needs to be happening now? What needs to be happening in 10 minutes? And what needs to be happening in 30 minutes? How can you be a helper? So at the end of this road was our lake, Pine Lake. And these campers are about halfway back. They need to be hustling back to their cabins in order to change clothes. That transition to change clothes back at their cabin and get back to flags has to be really quick. And so the camp counselors really have to be on it. They can't be leaving things back at the lake for them to need to run back and go get them, because there's no time for that. They need to get to their cabins, potentially make sure their co-counselor already has other people up and showered, so the showers are free and ready to go. Maybe it would have been good if the co-counselor had had campers set out the clothes that they were going to wear for that day, so they could quickly throw those on. They need to be thinking about what are the supplies that we need to take from our cabins for morning activities, so that those are ready to go, and to help campers remember those so they can get out the door really fast. And then the counselor needs to make sure that they get themselves ready really quickly, so they aren't the one holding up everything. And maybe that means that the co-counselor that got to sleep in has all the other girls ready to go, so that they don't have to be worried about that, and they're kind of out of the cabin so that there's more space to get ready. Or perhaps the co-counselor is now going to take hold of these girls and help get them ready, while the counselor that went to polar bear swim has time to get herself ready. So all of those are things to be thinking about, on how you could be a helper and a good team player and sharing some work. Things that wouldn't be great would be if the counselor stopped and chatted up, the co-counselors that were down there before they went back to their own cabins. It wouldn't be great if the counselor didn't have all of their stuff together, and so they got too distracted taking care of their stuff that they completely forgot about the campers. Or if they spent so much time helping the campers and not encouraging them to take care of themselves that they didn't get their own self ready. So finding that balance on how to take initiative before you go to the activity, and then thinking through what needs to happen after the activity if you're going to be in those small time windows, so that you can help everybody, and making sure you're being a good partner with your co-counselors when you're in those different activity settings. Okay, next one. Group of campers are fishing. So in this circumstance, what needed to happen 10 minutes ago for everybody to be fishing right now? What needed to be happening 30 minutes ago for everybody to be fishing right now? And how could you have been a helper to get to this point? So 1 minute. What needed to be happening 10 minutes ago? What needed to be happening 30 minutes ago? And how could you have been a helper to get to this point? Fifteen seconds, so finish up your thoughts. All right. So what needed to be happening 10 minutes ago? Maybe think about that fishing, like a lot of our activities, has both an equipment component and a safety component that requires some more hands on deck. So what needed to be happening? Maybe let's start with what needed to be happening 30 minutes ago. So in order to get to this point, we needed to make sure we had all the right equipment. We had enough camper to counselor ratio or staff. We needed to make sure that the dock was safe and clear of any obstructions or wherever you're going to be fishing. So perhaps that's just a pond or a lake bank, and that's safe and good to go. We need to make sure that we have some type of equipment already put together, probably, for it to be a good use of our time, or maybe we're teaching how to do that part. We need to make sure we have all the pieces and parts together. What needs to be happening 10 minutes ago? Well, 10 minutes before this, these guys needed to be ran through the basics of how to operate a fishing rod if they hadn't done that. They needed to be taught what is the safe distance to be apart, so that way they're not getting hooks in people's eyes or faces or even in their clothing. They needed to be taught what they're looking for. Do they need to just constantly be like fly fishing, where they are constantly sending their hook out, their bait out? What kind of bait do they need to be using? All that kind of instruction needed to happen 10 minutes ago to be in this spot where they can actually fish. And anybody that's done fishing before, it takes some time to get set up and to get going, and then you really do have to sit and wait. And so if you're not efficient in your use of time, 30 or 45-minute sessions can go by really fast, and kids not actually have an opportunity to do the task that you're asking them to do. And so making sure that you're thinking ahead and taking a lot of initiative to say, I'm going to be the counselor that helps get the fishing rods together. I'm going to be the counselor that's going to talk through the instructions while the other counselors are laying out the fishing rods exactly where we want kids to be stationed. Or perhaps you've divvied up so that this counselor is going to take these 3 kids and this counselor is going to take these 3 kids and help problem solve that. However you're going to do it, you're going to want to make sure that you've taken the initiative to think through that, make sure you have the equipment, and that you have clear instructions already thought of in your head before you go through that, so that you maximize your time and kids don't think it's boring, because everybody knows fishing can be really fun or it can be really boring. So you got to figure that out. Okay. The next thing we want to do is to talk about counselor attributes of initiative. So if you're going to demonstrate self-direction or initiative, counselors have to be certain attributes. These are things that you would really want to see in a good camp counselor that's demonstrating that. Other attributes you can't be if you're going to demonstrate good initiative. And so I want you to take just 1 minute real quick to brainstorm at least 5 attributes that you must be and 5 that you can't be. You're about halfway through your time. Okay, time's up. So you probably have come up with a bunch of different attributes that are necessary to show initiative or to not have in order to show initiative. Here's some that I came up with. So in order to demonstrate initiative, you have to be proactive. So you got to be thinking ahead about how can I help? You got to be looking for opportunities for you to make things better. You have to be selfless. So sometimes demonstrating initiative means sacrifice on your part in the short term. And it's important that you're thinking through what can I do? What can I give up myself that's a reasonable request in order to be helpful? Another one would be problem solving. So perhaps you're in a pinch. Perhaps you were going to do some really cool activity and now that has to be canceled. Maybe it's got a rainstorm, for example. In that case, you could be the counselor that sits there and pouts or complains or freaks out about it, or you can immediately go into problem solving mode and take initiative to say, I know at least 3 camp songs. I'll take a group of kids over here and lead 3 camp songs. Or I know some really good no prop, low activity games. I'm going to take 3 groups over here and do those. Or, hey, I've got a deck of cards in my backpack. I'm going to take 5 kids over here and do a card game. And then we can rotate those, So if you put on your problem solving hat, you're part of initiative, of demonstrating initiative. You have to be able to be creative. So you can't think inside the box that this is the way we've always done it and we're always going to do it. And maybe some processes have to change in order to be flexible for that, for you to be able to demonstrate that initiative. And you do want to have conversations with relevant adults that are involved in that. So for example, the way we clear tables may or may not be the best way to do it. And so if, for example, somebody's like, I'd like to try doing it this other way, take initiative to put an idea forth of clearing tables this other way, we'd really want to check with the kitchen to make sure that that doesn't disrupt how they need to get their work done once they get the items back in the kitchen. So making sure that you're including everybody that needs to be included in decision making when you are being creative and showing initiative and offering new solutions or new ideas. But again, creativity is a great attribute of somebody that it shows an initiative. Another thing is to be focused. So if you're focused on the problem at hand or on what's coming next, and you're not completely distracted by other things or things that aren't about making camp be about the camper, then you're more likely to be demonstrating self-direction and initiative. A great example of this would be we do flags twice a day at our camp. I'm sure you guys do too. And there's a team of people that put those up and a team of people that take them down, and they're never the same team. We rotate through our cabins. And sometimes our cabins get distracted, like maybe they're stuck out in the canoes for longer than they thought and they aren't going to make it back for flags in time. It's really important that our other counselors are aware of, is anybody getting ready for flags and paying attention to that? So that way another group can step in and read the script and do the activity in the event that for whatever reason the group couldn't make it up to do that. So again, they have to be paying attention to what's going on with the schedule and what should be coming next. Things that you can't be lazy, because if you're not willing to work hard, one, we don't have a spot for you at camp at all. And two, you're not going to be demonstrating initiative. You're not going to be one of the problem solvers, one of the helpers. You also can't be selfish, because oftentimes this requires something of you that goes above and beyond what you were originally, according to the job description, tasked to do. And so looking for ways to help means you can't be selfish. You also can't be short-sighted. So you have to be thinking about the next 5 and 10 minutes down the road or hour down the road. So for example, if you're showing initiative, you could say, hey, we've got campfire tonight. Everybody's going to need to quickly come back and put on long pants and grab your sweatshirt and have your bug spray ready to go. So that way everybody can get in and out of the cabin really fast before we go to campfire. If we do that, we might have time to spend an extra 10 minutes out on the lake doing kayaking as a cabin. Wouldn't that be fun? And everybody would say, yeah. But if you're not thinking ahead, you're going to put your whole cabin in a bad spot. So make sure you're showing initiative on helping those kids see what they can do to make other opportunities happen for them if they're thinking ahead. You can't be narrow-minded in the same way that it's opposite of creative, because some people are going to come up with ideas and be part of that brainstorming process of finding the best way to do things and new ideas. And if you're narrow-minded or stuck to, this is the way we've always done it, you're probably going to miss out on taking some initiative to get other things done. And you can't be distracted. Like we said, you can't be the counselors that are sitting there chatting with other counselors and also be the person that's solving problems. Unless you are actually working on a problem, you should probably be with the campers. And if you're with the campers, you should probably be focused on the campers and not focused on just hanging out with your friends. So those are some good things to keep in mind when you are taking initiative. Okay, when we talk about self-direction in my county, we always talk about there are no traffic jams along the extra mile, or there's no traffic on the extra mile is what we commonly say. And the thing to think about with this is that people hate traffic jams. They hate being stuck in one spot. They hate being bogged down by other people. They just want to be able to go forward and do the thing that they are supposed to do. And at camp, when you are going the extra mile, going above and beyond to solve problems, to take initiative, to see how you can be a helper, there's likely a chance that you're not going to get much resistance, that you are going to be able to do that and look like a rock star and make camp a better place. And that's what we're all at camp for. So when you think about whether you should make a decision or not, is it going to help people or not? Is it going to help camp or not? Is it going to make camp better and make memories at camp better? Think about that when you're making your decisions on what your actions look like at camp. And like we said, there's no traffic jams on the extra mile. So if you can do something extra to help somebody else and pay it forward and hope that, that comes back around to you eventually, that's the attitude that we want at camp. Okay. If you have any questions, you should contact your county educator or myself. I'm Katie Feldhues. I'm the Ross County 4-H educator, and my email address is listed right there. We hope that you are staying at home and staying safe. Thanks.